So welcome also from my side. To be honest, I'm really quite excited to be here, like real people, kind of a real stage, real talk. That is actually really awesome. So today I want to talk about the transformation of Raiffeisen Bank International to more modern software engineering. And the set of tools that guided us on this journey is what we call our DevOps transformation toolbox. So yeah, now it works. Okay, so now, I mean, we have a toolbox, which means we have tools that should guide us on the transformation. So things are easy, aren't they? You know, like pretty straightforward. But folks, I have bad news for you. It isn't like this, unfortunately. What these transformation processes typically look like are more like this. And there is a significant likelihood that the goal will never be achieved. Yeah? But this is where our DevOps toolbox practically comes onto the stage. Yeah? So what we hope to achieve if we apply the tools from the toolbox is something more like this. Yeah? So still not completely straightforward, but generally kind of a almost straight path. Yeah? So but considering this, yeah, it is clear transformation processes are complex. Transformation processes take effort, they take time. There is no shortcut. Yeah? And if you take this into consideration, it is clear that what I will present to you today is not like a glorious success story. Yeah? That's just not the case. It is more like a glimpse into some kind of process that has been starting already a couple of years ago. Yeah? It is also obviously not my journey, but it is the journey of many people and teams inside of RBI that want to improve the way how they work. Okay, but first things first, let me start with a short introduction of myself and also basically where RBI is coming from. Good, so I've already been introduced shortly. My name is Ruzitschka. I'm working for Raiffeisen Bank International since around 4 years, but have been in the business already for quite some time in various roles. My current role in RBI is I'm the community lead for the DevOps community and also work as an Agile engineering coach. A bit more about that later. Besides my regular work, I like to talk and write about agility and engineering topics in general. If you're interested in these kind of things, and I guess somehow you are because you're here today, yeah, you may check out what I do also on social media. So just check it out if you're interested. But now to something more important, and I'd like to give you a bit more context about RBI and where we were coming from an engineering perspective. So, but generally RBI, Raiffeisen Bank International, we are like, just some facts from the website, the leading corporate and investment bank in Austria, pretty huge organization, subsidiaries in Central and Eastern Europe, so 13. In these countries, RBI is also acting like as a universal bank. So what it means is you can go there to a branch office and open an account. That's not possible in Austria. Overall, we have around 46,000 employees and serve 19 million customers. So it's like a pretty big enterprise organization, I would say. But these facts are maybe not so relevant to what I want to talk about today, because what I would like to explain a bit more to you was where we were coming from an engineering perspective. Yeah? As you see, we are like a huge organization. This means we have a huge variety, or we have and had a huge variety of different organizational setups, processes, and of course also technologies. And related to this, there is a similar was a similar variety in the way how teams are working. Besides this, I mean, and that's also something that we always have to keep in mind, Raiffeisen Bank International has a pretty traditional background. So the way how we deliver products to our customers is actually really, and was kind of very traditional. Yeah? I mean, if you're a bank, then it's good if you do your business in a kind of conservative way. But if we're talking to our customers and if we look at the competition, then it's clear, yeah, a traditional way probably, won't do it. And very important, general approach to IT, also something that's pretty common in traditional enterprises. IT was mainly seen as a cost center. Yeah? So the role of IT was basically to deliver features as cheaply as possible. So from an innovation perspective, IT was not considered as so relevant. It's just like do what you're told, more or less, and do it as cheaply and effectively as possible. Good. Yeah, so I would say at the end, it was clear that this kind of way of doing our stuff is probably not like future-proof. Yeah? So if we want to be competitive in the future, then something basically has to change. And to guide us in this change process, the company actually, I don't know, 2 years ago or so, 2 or 3 years ago, decided to formulate some kind of vision and mission statement. Yeah? I'm not going to read it out to you, but at the end, what it is all about is that the organization actually wants to kind of enable a continuous flow of information. What we want to do is deliver customer value continuously and quickly. Yeah? But also do this in a way that's good for our people. Yeah? So it's also important. Yeah? So at the end, basically the decision was done to move to agility on all levels of our company. So you can imagine what that means. Yeah? It means really a lot of changes on all different levels. So from an organizational perspective, changes also from the way how we collaborate, changes also from the way how we budget. You know, like all of these things basically needed to be changed. But not only these things have to change, but also the way how we work as engineers is obviously deeply impacted by these kind of changes. So the question is now, how do we get there? Yeah? How do we move to this kind of new way of working that we needed to accomplish also from an engineering perspective? Yeah, good question. So how did we approach this? And this is actually where our DevOps toolbox comes into play. So what we did is basically we looked at the industry, tried to figure out if there are good practices, try to figure out what we can pull in. Yeah, you don't need to invent everything from scratch. It's just not possible and also not necessary. There is a lot of good stuff outside there available in industry. That's what we did. We just pulled them in and applied them in a bank-specific context. Yeah, so, and this is actually what the DevOps transformation toolbox is all about. But if you start these kind of transformation processes, you need to have a clear idea where you want to go. Yeah? A clear idea about the target picture, the way how we want to operate. And actually, this is already our tool number 1. Have a clear picture of our target operating model. And I just want to emphasize that now I'm mainly talking about the context of IT, but generally, of course, many of these things are also applied in the overall in the company. Good. So our target operational model basically is, and that was like a common decision, we want to have autonomous product teams that apply DevOps methods and practices. Yeah? So this is what we want to achieve. This is our target model. What does it mean? Just to be very clear, it means that we have autonomous teams that own the complete software delivery lifecycle from requirements definition to implementation, but also operation and maintenance. Yeah? So this is the idea. And of course, we didn't apply this model to each and every team in the bank, but the goal was that we apply this kind of operation model to the teams that develop products that are important for us in the market, that are distinguishing from the competition. Yeah? This is like where we have the highest leverage, and this is where we want to apply this kind of operational model. It was really important that this is also kind of documented in the overall IT strategy. Yeah? So what you see here is, and it says end-to-end DevOps teams. Yeah? So this is part of the IT strategy document, and obviously it is very important to have this, to also have the backing from top-level management, because these kind of transformation processes require, as I said already, a lot of effort, and there are many situations where you just also need to have the support from top-level management. Good. So now, of course, when this kind of strategy was done and we had a clear picture of the operational model that we want to achieve, now comes the time when we try to identify a couple of objectives. So teams sat together also with management and defined objectives and key results. So we already have heard about that framework today in the keynote, and Many things kind of resonated with me, I have to be honest, yeah. But still, I think for us, it was kind of a useful exercise to discuss these kind of objectives because it gave us a kind of idea about our focus areas, yeah. It helped us to align across all of the teams. So definitely, I would say it was useful for us, yeah. I'm not saying we're applying this in all of the full beauty, but it is a good way for us also to get some kind of clear picture about our priorities. Yeah? So I think it was actually pretty useful and is still pretty useful for us. What's important here is, and you know, most of you, I guess, know the model, so I'm not going into much details of this, but the objectives come with key results. Yeah? It is very important to understand, and this is also a key part of the framework, that how teams contribute to the key results is basically up to them. Yeah? So I said one of our target aspects of the target model is that we have teams that work autonomously. Yeah? So it means that if we talk about key results, we also must trust the teams that they know their context and their problem space best, so they know how to contribute to the key results. So we don't want to micromanage. Teams need to decide on their own how they contribute to the key results, actually. Pretty important, yeah? No micromanagement, we have autonomous teams and we trust them. Now, when we discussed this with the teams, we still found out that some teams needed some kind of inspiration where to start this kind of transformational work. They were kind of a bit lost in the beginning. Remember, we're coming from a traditional organization. There is a lot of change going on at the same time. So to help teams to figure out where they should start, what we did is we invented this Agile engineering maturity model, as we call it. Yeah? We've open sourced it a while ago, so if you're interested in it, check it out. The link to GitHub is here. What it is, basically, it's like a questionnaire, a big Excel sheet, yeah, where teams basically evaluate themselves regarding their capabilities in the area of CI/CD, DevOps, testing and test automation. So it basically looks like this. Yeah? It is a rather comprehensive Excel sheet that includes a couple of statements, and teams discuss it inside of the team and then say, okay, yeah, this fits to the way we work in the best way, so we put ourselves in the crawl bucket or in the walk bucket. It's really important to understand, and that's also a discussion that we always have with the teams. This is completely this kind of evaluation is only relevant inside of the context of a team. This is not a calibrated assessment or an audit. Yeah? The teams do the assessment by themselves. Yeah? It's only valid for one team. You can't use these results to rank teams in any way. Yeah? This is really important. When we do this kind of reviews with the teams, that's always the first question, of course. Yeah? They say, okay, and what if I'm bad here? Is this like, will other teams see this? You know, it's a difficult thing, so it's really important to point out that this is purely a team self-evaluation. But what you get here is some kind of baseline. Yeah? So team has a common understanding how they work. It's actually also something that sounds pretty, I don't know, every team should know how they work, but if you have all of the people of the team in one room and they discuss in detail how things work out, then our experience is that sometimes not so clear. So even this conversation already provides some considerable value. So, but at the end, what we achieve is like team has a common understanding of a baseline and some kind of ideas where they can start. Yeah? So to improve. The process, I already mentioned it, is typically done like it's like a 2 hours meeting where the team sits together, goes through this kind of questionnaire, puts itself into the buckets, and then at the end you get some kind of heat map like this. Typically, the process is guided by an engineering coach. The engineering coach is not involved in any evaluation. The engineering coach just explains if there are ambiguities and kind of facilitates this self-evaluation session. We have this role of Agile engineering coaches is also something that's pretty interesting, I would say, from my perspective. I'm actually also one of these guys. What are they doing? So basically, the idea is that Agile engineering coaches sit with the teams. So they are enabling teams in the area of CI, CD, test and test automation. But the important thing is they sit with the teams for a time-boxed amount of time. So you have like a clear agreement how long they will be with the time. and you have a clear scope and a clear goal, what should be achieved. Yeah? So time-boxed assignments and pre-aligned scope and goals. Typically, the time box would be something like 3 to 6 months. So a time where really something can be achieved, but it has a certain limit. But the important thing is, and that's really something that we wanted also to avoid when we kind of designed this setup of Agile engineering coaches, was we don't want to be a team of experts that are pulled in and then solve problems and then go out again. So this is not the way how we want to work. We are really enablers, which means we work with the team. And at the end, if the coaches are pulled out, then the team should be able to do the stuff on their own. It's really important. Yeah? We don't want to be like a bottleneck, a team of experts. So just to reiterate, we want to do the work with the team and not for the team. Yeah, this is really essential. And that's also why we are calling ourselves coaches. Yeah? So we are not like consultants that go in and solve problems. Good. I already mentioned it, that the coaches also are working in the area of continuous integration and continuous delivery, so help teams also setting up pipelines. What is pretty clear if we talk about teams being autonomous and owning the whole software development lifecycle is that they really need to do a lot of stuff. Yeah. So not only do they need to do a lot of stuff, they need to know a lot of stuff, and there's just a limit, and typically this limit is called like something like cognitive load. Yeah, you just can't handle that much. There's a limit to what the team can handle. So we thought it is definitely a good idea to help teams with stuff that is probably not so business relevant, and that means we provide them centralized tooling with respect to continuous delivery pipelines, test tools, and this kind of other stuff. Yeah? So the idea was that we implement something that is like offered to the teams, a very good and state-of-the-art platform that provides pipeline tooling and all other stuff, and teams can just use it. Yeah? Also, again, important, teams are not obliged to use it. They can use it, but they don't need to use it. But generally, our experience is that if the platform is good, yeah, then teams are very happy to use it because it makes their life really, really easier. So what this is all about, it's not magic, it's pretty straightforward. So we have our own GitHub Enterprise installation. We have a couple of tools around it that provide static code analysis. Of course, we have an artifact repo. We have this is TeamScale. I don't know if you know it. It's like a static code analysis tool. I already said it, we have SAS scanning. So the idea is that we really have something that just is usable for the teams and makes their life easier. And again, our most important point here is that we want to avoid to become a bottleneck. Yeah? So we had a clear focus on making everything that the teams need basically available via self-services. So what we really want to avoid is the teams need to wait for somebody to create a repo or, I don't know, set up some kind of authorization rules. So basically, this can all be done by the teams by themselves. And this is also one of the reasons why we basically selected GitHub, because every developer in the world basically knows how to handle it. Yeah? It's straightforward. So the entry barrier is really, really low. The team that manages this central developer platform basically has just the task to make sure it runs reliably, it provides the performance that is needed, and of course they also do provide some kind of support. But also again here, we want to avoid this kind of centralized approach. If you want to know how GitHub works, then just Google it, yeah? Because there's so much documentation out there, you just don't need to wait for somebody to explain it to you. In addition to this kind of central platform, we also now in the process of implementing a developer portal based on Backstage. Backstage is like a developer portal tool that has been open sourced by Spotify. The goal is at the end to have like a central point for all of the developers where they find everything they need. And at the end, where they also create, for instance, application scaffolding just by pushing a button. That's the idea. We're currently working on it. I mentioned that this kind of developer platform, usage of this developer platform is not mandatory. Yeah? So that's generally true, but there is one thing that is mandatory, and that's basically using the centralized code repo. So GitHub obviously comes with a code repo, and all of the teams need to put their code into one repo. This also allows us, and this kind of centralized code repo is also the base for our tool number 6, and this is our inner source initiative. Yeah, you may have heard about inner source. Basically what it is applying the principles of open source, but in the context of an enterprise organization. So you can imagine that we, as a rather big company, we have a lot of engineers that produce a lot of code. Yeah? So we're talking about really thousands of software engineers, or people working in IT, basically. And not everybody produces code, but still. And the code that is produced is basically condensed knowledge. Yeah? So it is a really valuable asset, and the knowledge that is condensed in this code should be shared and should be as openly accessible to everybody. And this is why we introduced this kind of inner source initiative, where people can contribute mainly kind of software components or scripts, whatever, and make them available to the overall community, so basically to the whole group. Yeah? We see a lot of potential here. Reuse is obviously something that we really want to encourage, and this kind of platform gives us the possibility to do this. As you can imagine, if you roll out something like this, there must be some kind of lightweight process around, in the sense that there must be some rules: who owns software, who can contribute, you know. But we try to keep this really as basic as possible, so the barrier to just commit something or to contribute is really low. Yeah, so that's the whole idea. So we see this kind of sharing the code and also discussing about this as a powerful way to share knowledge. But there are other ways how we as organization can share knowledge, and this brings us to tool number 7, which is our engineering communities. Sharing knowledge and experience is really a very powerful way to learn as an organization. Yeah? And what we've set up here is like more or less 2 types of communities. One is a bit more formal, that's what we call guilds, and the other one is more informal. This is like what we call community of practices. So guilds, actually, I said they are more formal, and the reason for this is they have a dedicated guild lead, and people who are basically part of the guild do have some kind of obligation to spend a part of their time for community work. So what we're talking about is around 10%. So you have like a group of people that are guild members, and these guild members typically should work around 10% of their working time for the community. As you can guess, well, sometimes it works better, sometimes it doesn't work so well, but generally that's the idea. I'm the guild lead for the DevOps guild. We have guilds for other topics as well. For instance, we have a test automation guild. We have a guild that is taking care about cloud topics. And we are now in the process of establishing a guild that is active in the area of data. It's like pretty broad area. But there are a lot of things that can be discussed in communities like this. We also have a guild that's mainly non-engineering related, and that's our Scrum Master guild. As I said, the other type of communities that we've established is community of practices. They are just like more informal, so people just get together. There are many of them, but you know, if there's a need, then they will emerge. If there is no need anymore, then they will just disappear. So they're not managed in that case. They're more informal, but are also a very good way to share knowledge and experience. So we see many people like to share experience there inside of this specific community. So I think this is also something that works pretty well. But sometimes you want to have like another forum. You want to have like a bigger audience. You want to share accomplishments or something special that you did. Yeah? And for this, we established our internal engineering conferences. So actually, they are called Agile Engineering Days. Nice name. And how does it work? Yeah, so typically, we have them like 2 to 3 times per year. They are centered around one topic. Could be DevOps, could be testing, or cloud. And at the end, it's like a good opportunity first to show off accomplishments by teams. So teams typically will have like a 30-minute slot where they can present to the whole company, all of the participants. It's a great opportunity to also bring in people, bring in external speakers, yeah? So we can get also you know, information what's going on in the industry. And the third point that's also quite important for us, it's a great opportunity for top-level management to interact with the engineering community. Now, actually, the next Agile Engineering Days will be at the end of September, and it will be some kind of experiment because in the last couple of years, due to the pandemic, we were basically needed to do these conferences online. So, as always, there are benefits and there are disadvantages. The benefit is that we were able to just broaden our audience really considerably. So at the last conference, I think it was in February, there were like around 300 people peak. You know, it's not there all of the time, but generally this is, of course, democratizing access to these kind of conferences. Nobody needs to travel. It's easy. On the other hand, you're losing the social interaction. That's also a big and important part of this kind of conventions. So at the end of September, we'll do some kind of experiment and try to do it in hybrid mode. So there will be an on-site conference, but everything will be broadcasted and it's still easily accessible via Microsoft Teams. I don't know, let's see. We don't know if that really works out well. I guess there will be just around 50 people on site, and the rest will be will take part remotely. But still, it gives us this kind of, you know, both worlds. We still have some kind of social interaction. I think it's really important for us. Okay, so but clear is, you know, I've been talking now a lot about sharing experience and sharing knowledge, but to be able to share knowledge, you also need to have knowledge, yeah? And this is quite an important topic. I mean, we are talking about upskilling and T-shaping, you know, this like, if we talk about autonomous teams, then it's clear everybody has a lot of responsibilities and also a lot of opportunities, yeah? But we need to support our people in learning. And this is what I call here is tool number 9, our individual learning support. Again, here we have like 2 approaches. One is a bit more formal and the other one is highly individualized. The more formal approach is what we call our Go IT Academy. Yeah. At the end, these are like comprehensive curricula built around specific areas. I've included a couple of examples here. Agile engineering, general, cloud, modern architecture, test automation, data science. There are a couple of more topics that we cover. Business analytics is another one. So how does that work? They are like multi-month curricula. So typically they last around 6 months and you have like modules of 3 days of training every month. Yeah? So that's like 18 days complete, yeah? Quite a lot, and this kind of format really allows you to get some good fundamental knowledge about these kind of topics. So in former times, again, this has been done basically on site, yeah? So people have been flying in from all the different countries and did this kind of centralized training. Again, very good for networking, get to know each other, but almost prohibitive from a cost perspective and also, I would say, not really sustainable, yeah, from an environmental perspective. So we are now trying to do this also in some kind of hybrid mode where just like 1 or 2 modules are taking place on site. So we also have this kind of interaction, social interaction, and the others are done remotely. For these training programs, we bring in external trainers. Some of the things are done by internal trainers. So it's like a good mix. But what we've seen here is that there is also the need for something a bit more specific and more individualized, and this is covered by our learning journeys. So how does that work? Basically, we try to identify topics that are really required by the individual product team. So this is not generic, but this is really something that is very concrete. These are just a couple of examples. Yeah? So for instance, something like you want to know more about test automation in Python. This is a very specific need that may come out of a team that actually uses Python for test automation. So at the end, somebody from our group designed like a learning journey which consists of a couple of modules. These modules could be like just a blog article or some kind of online training, watching a YouTube video. They are collected around these specific topics. And at the end, the people who are taking these trainings do this in a self-paced way. So you can decide when you do your trainings. This gives a lot of flexibility. On the other hand, it's a very targeted way to learn. And the idea here is that everything you learn basically can immediately apply it in the context of your product work. If you need some support, we also have some kind of learning coaches that try to help if there are some issues, but generally the idea is that people do this on their own. And we also see actually pretty good uptake. This is used by many people who are also lost in the multitude of information that's available. I mean, basically everything is available, so you just Google and there are zillions of courses, but it needs to be curated in some way. And I would say these kind of learning journeys are kind of curated pieces of information that generally you would also get for free, but somebody took care that they are ordered and put into some kind of specific context. Good, so this was tool number 9, the support that we give to individual learning. Now, we've talked now a lot about what we did to improve. The question now is how can we figure out if we are moving into the right direction? And we've also heard something about KPIs today, and to be honest, I'm also pretty skeptical if we're talking about KPIs. If you try to collect quantitative data, in many cases the whole thing focuses on output and not on results. But what we, of course, we want to focus on good outcomes and not on the output. So, but in some cases it's also good to have some kind of hard numbers, definitely. So what we tried to do here to figure out if we're moving into the right direction is do a combination of like a qualitative and a quantitative approach. So the qualitative part is basically covered by our engineering maturity review that we did. I explained it as tool number 3, and this is like an example from a real team. So basically the team assesses itself every year or every half a year, it depends a bit, in the best case every half year, but some teams do it every year, and they answer the same questions. And at the end, what you get is you see if there has been some improvement based on the self-assessment. And this would be an example of a team that was progressing on basically all dimensions. So it's easily visible in just the colors of the heat map. So that's really something that works well, but as I said, this is more like a qualitative assessment. Now, if we also want to have some hard numbers, then we actually implemented our tool number 10, and these are our engineering KPIs. And if you've been in the room just before, then you probably see something that you will recognize. Our engineering KPIs give us some quantitative feedback. The good thing is, again here, there was no need to invent anything for our own, because there are well-established KPIs in the industry that can act as a proxy for overall engineering capabilities. And these are the DORA metrics. I don't know, has anybody of you heard of the State of DevOps report? You know that? 3 people, 4, 5? Well, it's not too many. I really can recommend it. The State of DevOps report is like a survey that is done every year where many companies, basically, where the numbers are collected from many companies. And at the end, the main result of these reports that are, as I said, very interesting every year, is that there was a correlation found between a specific set of KPIs and overall capabilities of an organization from a delivery perspective. And these are the 4 KPIs where the correlation is the strongest. So let me shortly walk through. Deployment frequency, pretty straightforward, just shows how often you deploy in production. The second one is lead time for changes, as it is, as the term is used here. We internally use cycle time for changes. Lead time for us is like a bit of a other thing that starts already way earlier, but what we measure is the time that is spent in the engineering organization, basically. The first 2 KPIs are focused around speed of delivery, and the second one are like balancing and take care about the quality. So the first one is mean time to recovery. It shows the resilience of your system. If you have a problem in production, how long does it take you to bring it back to a good working order? And the last one is change failure rate. Change failure rate basically is also a very simple KPI. It just says how many of your product deployments need some kind of remedy because something has broken. Good. If you want to know more about this, and that's what I was referring to, if you want to know more about this, again, I can only recommend this book because it's really, really good. Yeah? Read it, and it is like it also gives a bit of a background around the statistics, yeah, how this correlation was found, and also because there is some actually good research around all of this. Read this; it's really useful. Good, but having this kind of qualitative and quantitative feedback basically closes the feedback loop for us. It just tells us that we are moving into the right direction. Now, let me quickly wrap up and give you a short rundown of the tools. So first one, clear target, autonomous teams working DevOps mode. This is like the base, yeah? That shows where we want to go to. Then we implemented these OKRs to give us an alignment, set priorities, and also give us some focus. To support teams on their journey, give them some ideas where to start, create a baseline. We introduced this engineering maturity model, team self-assessment. Coaches help the team to improve in the areas that have been identified. To also reduce the cognitive load that development teams need to handle, we offer them our central developer platform, good tooling that makes their life easier. We support knowledge sharing, first on source code base, but also via our communities and our conferences. Individual learning is very important. We also heard it today in the keynote. So if you want to grow, then of course you need to give people the opportunity to learn. And at the end, we introduce the KPIs to just make sure we know that we are moving into the right direction. So I guess now the question is obvious. Yeah? Having said all of this, did it work? Have we made progress? And as I said, I mean, it's not like a glorious success story, but it's more a glimpse into a journey. And still, I would say, we do have achieved a lot. I mean, you can guess I'm kind of biased because I've been involved in a lot of these activities, but still, I have the feeling that a lot has changed in our organization. First thing is, and that can't be underestimated because, as I said, we are really a traditional organization, is the conversation has changed. Yeah? So we are talking today about DevOps, we are talking about CI/CD, we're talking about automated testing, and these are things that, you know, that make sense to people. That it's not like they have no idea what we are talking about. This is a big step for somebody coming from this kind of traditional side of doing stuff. Based on our increased knowledge, and we were able to move dozens of products to proper pipeline tooling, including all the automated steps of deployment, build, and testing. Natural consequence of all of this is that we had significant increases in deployment frequency, and cycle times went down dramatically. Yeah? For some projects, like there is like a big bandwidth, yeah? But still, imagine coming from a bank where like release cycles of once per quarter are pretty common. Yeah? We've made considerable progress here. We have teams that releasing on a weekly basis. Yeah? Moving to the public cloud has also been a big enabler for good engineering practices. I actually was thinking about including as tool number 11, but that doesn't sound so nice. So, it is clear, yeah. If you move to the cloud, then many of the things are just required. You can't go to the cloud if you don't have infrastructure as code, if you don't do this kind of thing. So it's a big enabler for good practices, and we see a big move to public cloud in our bank. Communities are working, and we can really say that hundreds of people have improved their skills via, also supported by the activities that we and the opportunities that we give them. Now, it's a journey, I already said it, yeah? So are we there? No, obviously we are not there. But I have the feeling what we've built up is like a good foundation that will also support us in the upcoming years to continue our journey to improvement. Most likely, we will need to adapt our tools. They will change over time, but that's kind of natural. It's kind of in the nature of things. But overall, I think we're in a good way, and we're making progress. There is no end to this process. There is no state where one could say, okay, now we've achieved what we want. It's just not possible. It is a continuous process, and I think we have laid a good foundation. that's it, more or less, from my perspective. So I hope some of the information was useful, at least interesting for you. If you have any questions, also to specific parts of our toolbox, to specific tools, just reach out. I'm happy to discuss. As I said, I like talking about these kind of things, so just get in touch. And yeah, thank you for listening and having me. And yeah, deploy confidently and have a nice afternoon.